Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is One Piece East Blue Saga Arlong Park Arc, Episode 38, Luffy in Trouble, Fishmen versus Luffy Pirates. Episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So, in the start of this episode, Luffy arrives to confront Arlong, and he punches the gates of Arlong Park right off their hinges, and then walks in and demands to know who Arlong is. And once Arlong is pointed out, he dispatches the fishmen who try to get in his way before punching Arlong and sending him flying across the little courtyard area. And then, of course, the other fishmen are all up in arms and they start to attack. Sanji comes in and kicks them all away, getting upset at Luffy for hogging all the prey. And this is when Arlong stands up, but Hachi comes forward and says, "Oh, you don't even need to deal with them. I've got this solution." And he uses his mouth like a horn to call Momu back. And Momu, of course, is the sea cow that Sanji and Luffy had drag their boat to the island after soundly defeating it. And so Momu comes, and there's a dramatic arrival, but as soon as he comes out, he's got a bump on his head and he's crying. And then he sees Luffy and Sanji, and he just kind of sinks back down a bit and tries to walk away, but then Arlong has something on Momu and is basically like, "Momu, you know what your job is." So Momu then turns back around to come at Sanji and Luffy, despite being like terrified of them. And this is when Luffy decides to stick his feet into the pavement so that he can twist his body around and use the new cool move he thought of when he saw Gen's hat, Pinwheel. And he unveils his Gamu Gamu no Pinwheel and basically spins around, and Momu knocks down all of the other fishmen except the officer fishmen, and then Luffy tosses Momu out into the ocean. And this is then when Hachi gets a little bit upset. He throws like an ink jet at them, but Luffy can't dodge because turns out his feet are firmly stuck in the pavement, so he's the only one who gets hit by it while everyone else has the foresight to run. Then Usopp tries to pull Luffy out. Meanwhile, Sanji and Zoro pick their opponent, so Sanji decides to take Kurobu, and Hachi ends up remembering who Zoro was and what Zoro had done, lying to him, tricking him, even though really he kind of did it to himself, but we don't judge here. Um, so Sanji takes on Kurobi. Zoro is challenged by Hachi. Arlong decides they're going to play a game, and he takes. Okay, so no, I'm jumping ahead. So then Usopp tries to, while the others are distracted, pull Luffy out, but he fails, and then he accidentally lets go of Luffy, who then swings back and hits Chew down, who then decides that that is a challenge from Usopp. So Usopp, of course, being the coward he is, starts to run away. Chew starts to chase him, finds the villagers outside of the gate, sees their weapons, and are like, "You're in rebellion." But before he can start attacking them, Usopp comes back just enough to slingshot an exploding star at his face, which then distracts Chew enough to go running after Usopp, and the villagers are trying to decide whether or not Usopp's a coward or not, because similarly he had saved Gen earlier from a rooftop before running away. Now he's still running away, but then he did come back to distract Chew from attacking them, but again is running. Meanwhile, Arlong decides he wants to start a game with the crew, and he lifts up the block of cement that Luffy got himself stuck in, and tosses him into the sea. And this now has a timeline, or puts a timeline, on Sanji and Zoro's fights with Kurobi and Hachi, while Arlong just kind of lounges so that he can watch them. And this is the setup of this episode for the coming episodes and the coming fights. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode. We'll rank on our mostly objective ranking list first, followed by the personal ranking list. Our mostly objective rank values. We have positive 3 points for our multi-arc supporting character growth, and this is Hachi's Ink Attack. Then we have our multi-arc main character growth, and that is the new move that Luffy unveils, the Gomu Gomu Pinwheel. And that brings us up to 7. However, I did think that there was a -1, and that is the fact that this is a setup or recap episode. In this case, it is a setup episode. He comes in, challenges Arlong, gets rid of Momu, and then everybody just sort of sets up their coming fights. So Zoro versus Hachi, Sanji versus Kurobe, Chu versus Usopp, Luffy to the side in waiting, while Arlong also is lounging around to see the end of his game in waiting. So everything is getting set up, but set up for future episodes. But that leaves this a 6 out of 10 episode. Bringing us to our arc ranking so far on our mostly objective ranking. In first, we have the most wicked man of East Blue, Fishman Pirate Arlong. Second, Luffy stands up, end of a broken promise. Usopp's death, Luffy yet to land, the Witch of Kokoyashi Village, Arlong's female officer, Survive, the Mother Bell Mare and Nami's family, Luffy in trouble, Fishmen versus Luffy Pirates this episode, and that comes in 6th place. Then we have Reunited, Usopp tells Nami's true story, and then in 8th so far, the hidden past female fighter Bell Mare. Personal ranking for this episode. Really liked this episode. I laughed at it quite hard. This is one of my favorite parts about. So, okay, let me organize my thoughts. One, it was funny. There was a lot of funny moments. During the recap, I went over some of them. Second, this is the arc where I start to like Usopp. Like when I first watched it, I did not like Usopp as a character. I think his introduction arc did him dirty. It had him fighting close combat when he is a sniper long range fighter. It didn't show him off. And with the lying and everything, which is really, most people don't like liars. Although he does do it in a comedic way and in a like mostly harmless, innocent way, like making up stories. So that's not really negative. But the point is, I didn't necessarily like Usopp when he was introduced. And we didn't see much of him in the Baretti arc after his village arc. So this is really the first time outside of his introduction arc that he's doing something that's really hilarious. And the reason I like Usopp as a character is because he is funny. If he's not there, like if it's not comedic relief, I'm like meh on the character, but when it is comedic relief, I think he's great at it. So I love that he's trying to pull out Luffy and Luffy's like just kind of chilling there, like I don't know that pulling is actually going to get me out. And then he gets tired, decides to let go of Luffy so he can wipe the sweat off his brow, which ends up slingshotting him into Chu, who then starts to chase him. And it's funny to me because it's like a rematch because Chu is the one who originally caught him and brought him to Arlong Park before Nami faked his death. So I thought that is a great matchup and honestly one of my favorite fights ever. I am so excited for the Chu versus Usopp fight because it is one of the funniest ones to me and one of my favorite fights. So really looking forward to that. And this is the episode where it sets it up, so that gives it positive points. There's the general comedy that is Hachi not like recognizing okay, no. When they walk in, he first recognizes Luffy as that Nichiren who likes to take walks because he walked by them before. And Then later on, when he actually faces Zoro, he's like, "Oh, I remember you now. You tricked me. You cut down all of my brothers." And then Zoro's like, "Oh, we don't need to rehash old stories. We're just gonna fight now." So I found that great. Obviously, Sanji is referring to them by their dishes he can make with them, which again I feel is just like a bit savage, but also very on point and amusing. And then there's the Momo thing, and I like Momo. I feel so bad for Momo, but I think Momo is adorable. So I like that we got a little bit of a cameo back from Momo again. Unfortunately, he did get thrown way off into the ocean, but it is so adorable when he like comes up and he's all menacing, realizes the person he's trying to menace beat him already, sinks back and is like meekly trying to like make his way out without getting hurt, only to have his boss basically say, "You have to get hurt or else." And so then he comes back and then poof, off he's gone. And then it does build tension because we've already got like three fights ongoing. Obviously, the main fight between Luffy and Arlong gets postponed, and I think that's a good choice. I usually don't like when they like set us up for a fight and then it doesn't happen for several episodes later, or conversely, if they start a fight and then they just like randomly decide to leave the fight for various reasons, it does kind of annoy me. But in this case, I understand why, because we've got Sanji versus Kurobi, we've got Zoro versus Hachi, Usopp versus Chu. It's like adding a fourth one in there. It'd be like in an episode, there'd be like 5 minutes for each of them to have a fight, and it would just be a little bit overwhelming. So I do like that they're kind of making an excuse for Luffy to postpone the big fight so that the little fights can get handled in these interim episodes. I think that's a smart choice. I think it was a good choice. Overall, like I said, really liked the episode. Ultimately, though, not a lot happened. It was very comedy heavy, which I appreciated, but ultimately, it's setting up all of the fights for the future. That is why I gave it an 8 out of 10, because I couldn't justify more than that. And that brings our arc rankings so far on the personal ranking to in first, Luffy stands up, End of a Broken Promise. This episode I put into second place, Luffy in Trouble, Fishmen versus Luffy Pirates. Then The Most Wicked Man of East Blue, Fisherman Pirate Arlong. Usopp's Death, Luffy Yet to Land. Reunited, Usopp tells Nami's true story. Survival, The Mother Belle Mare and Nami's Family. The Witch of Kokoyashi Village, Arlong's female officer, and then in 8th place, The Hidden Pass, female fighter Belle Mare. Bringing us now to the final segment. No, not even our final segment. Oh my goodness, I am jumping ahead. No, these are our saga rankings so far, where we're ranking each of the arcs against each other. So, mostly objective ranking. First place, Romance Dawn arc with 86.67, followed by Orangetown arc with 76%, Baretti arc 68.33%, Syrup Village arc was 64%, and then the Arlong Park arc so far has 58 out of 150. On our personal side, Orangetown arc did come in the first place with 74%, Romance Dawn arc in second at 66.67, Baretti arc third, 52.5, Syrup Village arc is currently in fourth place, 49%, and the Arlong Park arc is currently 59 out of a possible 150. Now we're coming to our final segment, which is the series ranking so far. This is where we're going to be ranking each of the sagas against each other. But the East Blue Saga on the mostly objective ranking so far has 25 out of 80, and then on the personal ranking side has 14 out of 80. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Piece, East Blue Saga, Arlong Park Arc, Episode 38, Luffy in Trouble, Fishman vs. Luffy Pirates. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.